Great. All right. So we're off and started. So thanks for joining this short session, hopefully to go through rotas in ChurchSuite. We are moving from our current approach of doing rotas where we used to store them in files on Dropbox and which had some issues around either permissions or seeing if you were on more than one rota, it was a bit of a hassle. And if you had to do swaps, sometimes that was a bit confusing. There was a few issues that we were having with it. And so we've moved to a system alongside our address book called ChurchSuite, which we're just sort of rolling out this week. And this is the sort of start of people getting used to it. If it's all a bit of a steep learning curve, don't panic. You're not alone. We're all just getting used to it a little bit. But do ask if you've got questions. And Abby or myself would be probably the right people to start off with. I'm going to share my screen and I'm just going to walk through some of the functionality that we've got. And there's the application that we use for this is called My ChurchSuite. Let's call it an end user application that you can use, and you can have it either as a web page that you use, or you can have it as a app that you have on a tablet or on a smartphone, so you can kind of look at what's going on from that. So I've just logged into it myself. You'll get an invite link from Abby when you sign up, and then you have to set a password for yourself, and there's some details on that. We have put a little cheat sheet together, and essentially what I'm going to be going through now is the cheat sheet for rotas from this app. Okay, so I've logged in, and the first place that you see is home, some basic settings. This is how your contact details will look to everybody else. The summary, so you can see here I've set an email address, phones, address, and we've also got the church member status, which I added to, and that's public information as well. So that's on that. If any of those things are incorrect, then if you go to My Details, you can see all of the information, including things which not everyone else can necessarily see, but which does get used. So if there's anything in here which needs to be corrected, then do go and correct that. And there's a few things which will later on you'll actually use as part of the rota. So you can set a photo, which is handy if people may not know who you are. So that's quite useful to set that if you're happy to. You can set your partner, and you can also under My Children confirm who your children are, and that's useful because in rotas you can see your partners and you can see your children's rotas, so it's a way of having a bit of visibility of what's going on. And you can edit when you say you're on holiday. You can also say the whole family is on holiday, and it's all set up in one go, so that's quite nice. So if you go through and you make sure that your partner is set up correctly, that's helpful. And you can also then there's a few other things. If you have kids, then you can both be responsible for them. So you click these obvious edit buttons if you need to change them. It's a little bit smaller on the phone, but it's basically all in a similar place. Communications. So this is where you set your address information, which you get used, and you'll also set your preferences for your communications. And this matters because we have a setting which will say whether or not you're happy for rota reminder emails or rota SMSs to be received. So if you turn that off, you won't receive any reminders in either email or SMS. At the moment, we haven't actually set up SMS. One of the questions that I have for this group at the end is, would we find SMS useful? It's a very small fee for us to pay for it if we want to. So if it's useful, then we can do that. But at the moment, I haven't yet set it up. So make sure those are ticked if you want to have the reminders. If you're getting fed up with the reminders and you don't want to receive them anymore, you can turn that off. Because you can just use the app to see what you're doing. And, rather than having reminders, if that works better for you. The other thing is privacy. You can turn your privacy settings off, and that will control what people can see in the address book. But if you even turn your name off, then it will mean that your name doesn't even appear on the rota. So it will say, you'll see that somebody's on, but you won't know who it is. Like everyone else won't know who it is. So The request to this group is really to keep your name visible. Otherwise, it makes the management a little bit complicated. The overseer can see it, but for everyone else to communicate and work with, swap things, it'd be better if everyone can keep at least their name visible. But the rest of the information that you share is up to you. Okay, this other information is not about rotas, so it's there. That's to do with other consent. Okay, so that's my details and how it will affect rotas, those settings. Children, again, you can see if you've got children and they're part of rotas, then you can set them up there. And if we have parental consent forms, and that will collect data, so you can edit details of kids in there. So onto the rotas themselves. So if you want to see when you're next serving, then you click on My Rotas, and there's a next serving section, and you can see the list of things that you are down, and when that is coming up, what the rota is and what your role is in this little blue badge, and the dates of when those are. And you will only see those rotas where you are either on the rota in this list, or you're on the team which has been set up. So if you're on the team but you don't happen to be on that term, you will still be able to see it until you get dropped off the team, if that's in the situation. In this case, you'll only see the ones which are listed here. Now, as I said, you can also see the same the rota information for your family. You can click on your name, change the person, and you can see what their rotas, what they've got down if you need to check what other people are doing. All right. So that's rotas, and it will highlight the ones that you've got. Now, you're probably thinking there's this red line, there's this red thing here. What does that mean? So red means that you have a clash. Okay. And each rota has got both a date and a time window. And if the time windows overlap with one another and you're on the same rota, it gets flagged as a clash. Now, that's not always a problem, but it can be a problem. So if, for example, you were on preaching and also on junior church and they happen at the same time, that clash would be a problem and you'd need to resolve it. In this case, we have a separate rota for a weekly role as a deacon, and that can be done at the same time as preaching, leading. But it's worth being aware that you've got two things that you need to be aware of, just so you can prepare. And sometimes, for example, if you're on the cafe team or doing serving teas and coffees after service, and you're on junior church, that is a clash which will flag because the times do overlap, but you might be able to manage that. Okay, so that's just for you to be aware that there's a clash, and if you need to arrange a swap, then that can be done. Okay, so that's red, and that's what clashes are. The way ChurchSuite works is that it flags these things to you. It doesn't really ever make a decision for you. It's just sharing the information. So if you're clashing, it's just saying it's clashing. Whether that's a problem or not, that's for you to deal with. Okay. On the rotas section, so this shows you all of the, as I said before, all of the rotas that you're on, or where you're on the team. If you happen to be an overseer, that's somebody who is able to edit the rota for everybody, then you'll get a little pencil, and that means you get some more settings when you go into that. The others will be, just you happen to be on the rota and you have limited ability to edit them. You can change your own, but you can't sort of go in and change anyone else's settings or change when they're on. And then we've also got a starred item here called All Rotas. And what that is all of the rotas on a particular day. And this is useful for if you are, for example, if you are on the sound team and you want to see who is speaking or who is on the music group, you can see other teams' rotas that you're not part of, but you're obviously working with them, but as a different group. So this is a way of seeing on the 8th, which is this coming up Sunday, all of the different rotas that are on in that time. And we can set different, they're called services. So obviously this kind of works with much bigger church groups as well, but you can filter them down with different services if that's useful. I've set one up just for Sunday morning, which is a slightly more reduced group, but we can choose if we want to limit perhaps just junior church in one block or nothing. But this is something which might change a little bit in terms of how we group them, but they will all be available, all of the Sunday rotas on here, so you can get an overview of who's serving, who's on welcome, who's on the door, who's doing refreshments, all in one place, which is, I think you agree, pretty handy. Okay, so that's the all rotas. And then the last thing that we've got on the top is unavailability. So if you see that you're on a rota but you can't make it, and you realize, okay, I'm going to be away, you can go in and you can say I'm unavailable. You can also go in and swap with somebody, and I'll just go through what those two things mean. So first of all, these three dots will take you to the rota. Okay, so let's say I'm busy on the 22nd. So this is the rota, let's say for music rota. So I can see I'm here supposedly playing keys, and next to your name you'll see three dots. This is if you are just on the rota but you're not an overseer. You can see that I can't change anyone else's, there's no three dots next to anyone else apart from my name. So if I click on those three dots, I can then say, I can either say that I'm unavailable, I can also organize a swap. And let me just go ahead and do this. So let's assume I realize I'm away on the 22nd. So I can add unavailability. I could say just for the time slot for this rota, or I can say for all day. Now, when you say you're unavailable, you're saying that you're unavailable for any rota for that period. So this is not about having a clash and trying to pick one over the other. This is about you not being available at all in that slot. So let's say I'm away on the 22nd and I can't do anything. So I don't want to be put on any rotas at all, music or anything else, even if it's at different times. So say I'm on a demo holiday. If I hit save, and it's telling me there that there's a clash with the music. And when I entered that, the person who oversees the rota will get an email to say that there's an availability being added, so it flags that. Or I think that's what happens. I'm 90% sure. And now you can see a different sort of highlighted view. So you can see here that my name is red and it's been crossed out, which means it's unavailable. Okay. And if I go back to my rotas section here, and you look at unavailability, you'll see I've set myself as demo holiday. Okay. So that was and I can go in here and I can edit it, or I can delete it. If I realize, oh, it's not just the 22nd, but it's that whole week, I can edit it in here and change the dates or change the description I've given it. I can also add unavailability for the whole family. So if we're all going away for 2 weeks in the summer or something, you can just give a date range, whatever your dates are, long weekend away, whatever it is, and you can hit save and it will show you all of the things that are clashing. And certainly as we go forwards, you might hear the person who's organizing a particular group saying, please, can you put your unavailability in for the next, few months, because they're putting the rota together and they want to already know. It means that they can already plan it, and they've managed to not put in the initial clashes. Okay, so you could submit, I won't save this one, but you get the idea. The whole family, if they're part of the rotas, can set them up. So that's unavailability. Now, the other thing, let me just, I'll leave that unavailability in, but what I can also do is I can swap. And swap means that I will update the slot where I was on for somebody else. Now, if you're not an overseer, you can only just do the ones that you are down. I can't swap two other people with each other. I can just swap the one that I was due to do and have somebody else cover it. And then I can optionally return the swap for a different date. So I can swap with somebody and I can either do one of their dates or, no dates. If you need to do a three-way swap, you'll need to involve the person who oversees, and just say, I'm unavailable. Other people can do that. Or if you can just manage what the swap is, but you wouldn't be able to actually enter it. Now, either the overseer, or it's the kind of thing that probably you can just drop an email to Abby if you've agreed it, if the person overseeing it's not able to do it. So if I organize a swap, the first thing to say is that this should be should be done after agreeing the swap with somebody already. So this isn't about proposing a swap and seeing if other people can do it. This is about entering the swap after it's already been agreed. So you would text somebody or speak to them, or however you manage to arrange that, agree that the swap is happening, and then this is about just updating it so that everyone can see that the swap has actually happened. There's no approval process or anything like that. You're literally just updating the data of what the rota is. So you can't decline a swap if on the other side. So what will happen is that an email will go to that person, an email will go to the person who oversees the rota, but the swap has happened if you enter it. Okay, so for example, if let's say I'm swapping with Nathan on the 29th. So I can say Nathan's going to do it. And if I want to do his slot, I can pick the one where he was on. Okay, and that would swap the two. Okay, and once that's done, it would be entered. So I'm going to do it, and then I'm trying to remember to swap it back again. So here we go. See if this works. Now a whole bunch of emails are being sent out by me doing this. So you can see here, I'm down on keys for the 29th. You hear the ping, maybe you hear the ping when the email arrived. That's the next email. And Nathan's doing it the 22nd. And this is really useful if you actually do a swap to actually enter it, because everyone else is going to look at this and they will think they know who's on keyboard. So if you agree something offline, please do update the rota so that everyone's aware of it. If you're not sure, speak to the person who oversees the rota. I am going to put this back so that I don't forget. So I'll put it back with Nathan. Back on 22nd. Again, return swap. You don't have to return swap if you're just covering for them, or if you're going to work out either a one-way swap and somebody's doing it for you, or it's a swap where you're actually swapping the two dates, which is what I'm doing here. Unable to swap. I'm on holiday. Right, okay, here we go. That's interesting. You learn things as you demo for the first time. So let's remove my demo holiday. So I'm going to go to unavailability, delete that. Back to my rotas. Try again, organize the swap. Nathan. So you can see what happened where an unavailable slot swap was in there. Didn't prevent me from clashing, but it stopped me because I was unavailable. Okay, so that's swaps. That is, as I said, they're not a way of imposing slots on other people unsuspected. It's just about updating the rota after you've agreed it. The last thing to say about rotas is, if you want to, you can have them linked to your calendar in Outlook or your phone by clicking the appropriate button here, depending on whether you use this is, I think, Outlook and Apple and iPhones. This is for Android and for your ChurchSuite. So you can choose the appropriate one for you, and that will mean that your slots are entered into your calendar and they're kept up to date as things change. Your dates will change in your own calendar if you use that. So that is an overview. Just to finish off, because we haven't actually done this demo, but if you're interested, this search for others is where we see the calendar, the church address book, and you can see people have got their dates in here, their details in here, and you can search for people and see their details. So this is quite handy if you want to phone somebody or visit them. You can go and use that. So this is where we now use our up-to-date online directory. It's just a parting comment. Are there any questions which you're happy to be recorded in asking, and you would like me to clarify something which I've gone over, which it wasn't clear?
Yes, please, David. I'm on two rotas just as a member of the rota, the sound desk and musicians.
Yeah.
Now, I'm already booked for the next couple of months with the sound desk. Dave Kirby has asked me to make myself unavailable for musicians. And obviously I want to make myself unavailable for the dates that I'm already doing sound, because they're mutually exclusive. Now, how do I do that? Because I seem to have the ability to do the redlining.
Yeah.
Can I remove myself from music only and not from sound? Because what I did last week was I made myself unavailable, and obviously that then removed me from the sound desk rotas, which caused Steve Robinson a quick heart attack.
So unavailable is you're unavailable.
Yeah.
The clash. So as Dave puts the music rota together, if the sound desk rota has already been put in place, then the clashes will be visible, and that's really where you want to try and get the times as accurate as possible, because really a clash should be an indication that that probably doesn't work with somebody, and Dave can then go and click through and see what your clash is with, and in your case he may know, okay, Keith should never clash because it's always going to be unavoidable, whereas some clashes may be refreshments after church. Maybe they're a bit, not such an issue, but it could still be something where if you're the main person and you need to be there in setting up, then actually it's not a good idea for you to be a clash. So in that case, you wouldn't use unavailability. Unavailability is you're away, and you just let the clash, you let the clashes be that indication. So there's nothing for you to do on that.
Right. So it's then up to the person that organises the rota to make sure that I do not have a clash.
Yes, initially. That doesn't necessarily mean they can't publish a rota which has got a clash in. So after something's published, it's worth checking, and then you may need to agree a swap afterwards. In some ways, just like we used to, if there was a clash and people weren't aware. But hopefully now more information is available up front. But it doesn't mean that it's not guaranteed to happen. Okay.
Okay. I think in this case, Dave's asked that I email him to say that I've set up my own availability. So I think in the email, I would then make it clear that I can't do any dates when I'm already booked for sound. So that might be the best way to go.
Yeah. That would, and it will be clear as he's putting the rota together that would happen.
Yeah.
David.
Okay.
Are we asking people to arrange a swap themselves, or are we actually putting the onus back on the holder of the rota to make the changes?
So we have enabled the ability to enter swaps for everybody. You can only swap with something which you are currently doing. As I said, you can't swap to other people.
No, but Keith could perhaps swap, like in that instance where there was clashes.
Absolutely, he could receive the rotas and go, can't play guitar, then arrange it with Dave, and then just enter the swap, and then it's done. Now, if you can't work it out, or you can't be bothered to work it out, then you can always say to the person who's the overseer, I'm not available that day, are you able to organize a swap? And I think some groups, you may find that they will prefer to do that. So for example, if you're on junior church, or if you're on a lead, if you're leading for a particular group, that's a conversation that's worth having, not just with the person you're swapping with, but letting a few other people know. This is about just giving people the information and making it available for them to update the reality of what the current state is, which we always used to arrange it in the same way. So in some ways that offline bit happens exactly like it used to.
But the ideal thing has got to be that when we build the rotas, we try and avoid conflicts when we're building the rotas.
Yeah, as much as possible. Yeah. Are there any other questions?
Yes, David. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Because of this system, how often do you think we're going to have to log on to it? Is it an everyday thing, or?
That's a good point. See, no, not at all. So we have set up reminder emails for most rotas, not every single one, but most rotas, to come out once a week at the beginning of the week. So you should get a reminder email to say you're on. You may have already received one or two, and that is your main reminder. If you're somebody who's regularly on and you want to check to see, I would go on there and see what's coming up over the next couple of weeks, just so I'm aware of it. You don't need, if you will receive an email if you get last minute swapped in for something and you were, hadn't even been told about it. So you don't need to log in daily at all. I would say, you know, log in at the same frequency as you'd have checked the rotas now, and, you know, put it into your calendar if that's what you do at home, or just use this if you don't want to do that. So up to you how often you check it, but no more than once a week, I'd have thought. Okay.
Can I just say that I had an email saying set my password, and
Yeah.
I tried to click on that where it said set my password, and that wasn't a clickable thing. So I don't know really how to set my password.
So
that happened with me. And if you go onto the original email that Abby sent saying join ChurchSuite, I did it from there.
Great.
if you have any issues logging in, if you drop Abby an email, and she might be able to, she in some cases may need to send her an updated invite, because I think they will expire.
Abby, wonderful Abby.
Are there any questions related to rotas? And then what I'll do is we'll stop this recording.
Yeah, I've got one, David. If you click on rotas on your screen, and then you go to all rotas, and then scroll down to the bottom. We've got projection and streaming and sound rota, but nothing else for 7 o'clock. So I don't know who musician, because I'm leading that service. I'm not showing as leading that service, but I am. And we've also presumably got musicians then as well.
So that's because no other rota exists. So that's more of a gap in what has been set up versus you know, a bug in the system. It's like we haven't put a rota in. So in this scenario, what I think I would be doing if I was the leader of the group is I would be adding an additional date for any additional date and time for anything which is extra, you know, rather than necessarily creating an entire rota for one session. So that's the kind of thing that the overseer can do. And you know, if you know that there's a service going up, it's not clear who's doing what, an email to the overseer to say, please can you enter the who's doing what for such and such a special service if there's something happening.
But when you say overseer, you mean kind of I'd email somebody about the musicians, and also need to email somebody to see who the preacher is, because that's not in there either.
Yeah. And what we could do is, in this type of scenario where you have a one-off, you know, you could even just have a single one-off rota rather than, you know, just have an ad hoc one and just literally put in everyone that's involved, rather than creating lots of little ones. But it is possible to add an extra date, and I think time for a one-off service in a different group.
Because what it looks like at the moment is we've got a separate rota for sound and projection in the evenings. And we've got a church family prayer meeting rota as well for Sunday evenings.
Yeah, that's right.
We've got 2 rotas for the evenings, but just the 2 at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
But actually on the Sunday evening prayer, I think, Abby, correct me if I'm wrong, there's just a leader for the prayer evening.
Yeah.
And they are arranging and are asking their own musician-y type of person or somebody to play.
I don't know who like organises. I think Dave organises the musicians, doesn't he? I don't know. I just do the sort of who's the leader. I don't know who does all the rest.
So what I would do in that, what I would do in that scenario is I would still put all of the information in here just so it's clear. Even if, Abby, you only put one person in, I would still aim to try and get all of the information in here so that everyone knows who's doing what. You know, rather than having some people's responsibilities done offline.
Can I just check, David Goodchild, are you organising somebody to play at all those Sunday family prayers, or is that just a sort of ad hoc thing that's
it happens ad hoc? It's normally either me or Graham Sheldon, and we kind of take it in turns, and if one of us isn't around, the other one covers. But we've just been doing it in a very ad hoc way for the last couple of years, or however long we've been doing it. But this Sunday coming, I mean, I think Dave Kirby won't have done a musician rota for this Sunday evening, but he may know who's around. So I need to just talk to Dave about that. But I need to contact the preacher, and I don't have the preacher's details on here. So I was just looking ahead and thinking, what's, you know, if next time one of these pops up, what needs to be in there. I can easily email a whole load of people and get all the information for this week, but.
Well, what I would probably do is if somebody was unsure who to contact, you could always ask Abby and the ask in that scenario would be to add in an extra ad hoc service, and then the person who's overseeing that service can put it in, and we could create a rota just for ad hoc services if we wanted to, or for the Sunday evening one we can choose. Okay, there are lots of different ways of solving it, but that's in some way that's probably one area which we didn't quite put our heads to, but once we do, I think we'll be able to solve it. But it's a good thing to point out that it's missing. Are there any other rota related questions? Okay.
What about the people that are not on Zoom at the moment that need to know this? What's going to happen with that?
Well, that's why we're doing this. That's why we're doing this recording.
Right.
So,
okay.
Abby, do you want to stop the recording?
Yep.